Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. I have a special episode today. We're going to look at a long-term project, this huge jade forest, which I created from large, rootless, branchless, leafless cuttings in less than a year. And you can see it's quite overgrown. You might call it a jungle, in fact. It's really grown to the point where you can't even see any of the form. And I kind of call this my Korean jade forest because it's in this Korean pot. And we'll just do a quick spin here. You can get a look at it. We really have our work cut out for us with this one. It has just grown like mad. And I'll give you some background on this one before we jump in and start the work for today. This tree was created from a bunch of cuttings, and I'll put links to the video of the source tree. And, I just put them in a pot and basically just waited a year, and it's had no pruning done to it, and this is where we're at today. My jades grow through the winter, so I planted this one kind of late, but it didn't seem to mind. It just grew all winter and then really took off this summer, and this is where we're at today. But let's see how we got here. So I showed all the previous work in this forest in this video, and I'll put a link to it in the video description, and you can check that out and see how this forest was created from very large jade. But this is basically the process. I took these cuttings. You can see there's not much to them. They're just chunks of jade, and stuck them in bonsai soil. And, kind of put rocks around them to hold them up. And, tried to make it a forest shape. And, at the end of that video, we basically ended up with something that looked like this, just sort of the outline of a forest, but promising. And most of my readers thought, well, there's no way this is going to, sorry, most of my viewers thought, can this actually work? And as you can see, the answer is yes, it can work. Let's take a look at this. I want to show you a little bit of the trunk. It's got nice trunks in there. You can't you can't really see them. As I said, it's much more of a jungle than a forest at this point. Let me adjust the camera and I'll try to give you a bit of a look in there. We've got some nice forests. Very hard to see. This is going to be quite difficult to prune. Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But you can see all these new shoots are brand new. None of this was here before, and it's really resulted in some decent initial branches that I can work with. And so today, the goal is to cut this back. Let's take a look at it from the top. You can see it's quite healthy and rounded and just growing like crazy. And so I want to prune it back and give it a nice shape and get it on its way to becoming a beautiful bonsai tree. So let's pan back here a bit. You can see the whole thing, and we'll try to come up with a strategy for this one. It's a nice pot. I really like this Korean pot. I've had this for close to 30 years now. And as I look at this, I certainly had a front planned initially, but I'm kind of at a loss to see where that is now. Yeah, sometimes you just got to take a look, and I'll zoom in a little bit here and sit with it a bit and wait for some inspiration to come as to where to start. And with this one, you're really gonna have to get my hands in here and try to figure out what's going on. This is certainly a side tree here, but you can see a lot of these branches have gone out, I don't know, 6-8 inches, and I've got some stuff to work with. I'm pretty sure we're looking at the back here. Yeah, tough to tell. So as I'm really examining this, I think I'm coming to the realization that this is going to be near impossible to prune. I think this is the main tree. So, I recently I'll put a link to a video. I recently had a video where I defoliated a jade, and it actually worked out quite well. You can really, you might think, oh, I can prune this, but it's tough, and what I found is if I defoliate, especially these large leaf jades, you can really see the structure and refine it to get it, to just make the optimal pruning, which I don't think is really possible if you don't do that, at least not readily. And so I think, yeah, as I'm looking at this, I just, the problem is you have to start by making a cut, and without seeing the structure, where do I even know where to begin, So I think we're gonna defoliate this. So I'm just going to just convince myself this is the right thing to do. Yeah, I really, a lot of it's challenging oftentimes pruning a forest as it is, but this one is super challenging because, I mean, it's so thick. The only trunk I can see is this little bit of one over on the far side here on the right. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And yeah, I think that's the way to go. So let's get going. So I just cut off each leaf, and you don't have to be too picky about it. I mean, jades are really quite forgiving in just about anything you do to them. So, and if I get to something that's too long, I'm not going to be, by the book. Yeah, gotta defoliate every leaf. If I see, I'll just cut something off if I know I'm not going to be able to use it. Especially as I go further and really start, you know, um, seeing the structure of the tree, it makes it actually much more easy to make those decisions. But certainly, I always like to take off the end because that kind of encourages some back branching, back budding, and more branching. Um, so yeah, I am just going to zoom along here and cut off some leaves. So as I said, a year ago, I had just put this in the pot from these large cuttings. And check out that video if you're interested. It's really interesting to see how you create these. And, I'm sort of titling this video "The Wonder of Jades," and I'm quite serious about that. They're pretty amazing trees, and I'll tell you a little bit about why as I'm, taking off some of these leaves. You know, they're if you look at this example, this forest, for example, you sort of get an instant thick trunk forest. It's just amazing. From these large cuttings, which with most any other variety of tree you'd have to throw away, although not necessarily. A lot of them you can root them, but these just make it child's play, really. And they're so easy to care for. This channel is dedicated to jades. Crassula Ovata and varieties of that sort of jade, and then also Portuguese Afra, which, although it looks very similar, is completely unrelated. And I just really enjoy working with those two species, and I have so many of them, and I found it so fun and rewarding that I didn't necessarily intend for my channel to be completely jade focused, but it's sort of worked out that way. And the reason for that is my lifestyle. I just can't devote the daily time needed to maintain more conventional types of bonsai like a maple or a pine or other exotic tropicals like Brazilian rain trees. I mean, I love those trees. They're absolutely beautiful, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos and really just enjoy watching them. But I just can't do it right now. Those trees, especially in the summer, I mean, they require daily care and multiple times a day, many times, especially in the heat. And so, you need to be there watering them, checking on them, because a single hot day can cook those roots of a maple or an exotic tropical, and it's done. So I can't do that. Perhaps someday I can with automated watering, and I've thought about this a bit. Maybe I create a video system, where I can check up on the watering and kind of look at the trees like that. You can get these wireless cameras pretty inexpensively now. On my last trip to Hawaii, I thought about doing that, but I didn't. And, my trip to Hawaii is a good example. I mean, I was away for an extended period of time, completely automated watering, and the trees were absolutely fine when I came back. I think I had it set to water them every 4 days, and, which is about kind of what I do. And that worked out pretty well. Some of them got too much watering, but it was pretty good. So anyway, we'll see on other kinds of trees. But I certainly have my hands full with the jades that I have now. But the good news is, I'm so happy about working with these plants, and I really don't miss the conventional stuff at all. Um, and so I'm just grateful that I found these. When my previous bonsai life, as I like to call it, I mean, over 15 years ago, when I was really into other kinds of I didn't have a single jade of any sort. So it's kind of a flip for me, but I'm really happy. I'm really happy with how they've worked out so far. So you can see here we're cooking with gas and cutting these down, and there is a lot to do. So I think what I'm going to do, and you get really fast at this as you're going. I think what I'm going to do is, just turn off the camera and jump forward a bit and do some kind of time lapse defoliation. And then we'll get to the interesting part. And I guess I should explain a little bit of what I'm doing here. I'm just cutting off all the leaves, so no big deal. It just takes a lot of time because I don't know how many leaves are on here. It'd be a good kind of a drawing prize, but it's got to be. Oh my God, I don't know. What would you estimate? Say in the channel what you think the number is. I'm not going to pollute the results by saying what I think it is, and I'm not going to count them. But I'm curious what people think that might be. So just checking in here. It's a hot day. You can see I've cut a bit more off. I've got a refreshment. And I've got my favorite tweezers, which I found. Thank goodness. I Where were they? I don't even remember. But it definitely helps when you're doing this kind of work. You got to clear it out once in a while. There's so many leaves that they literally pile up on the bottom, and I can't actually see what I'm doing. But yeah, you can see here you starting to expose some of the structure, and man, it is better than I thought. I mean, as I said, this is the first pruning on these. I just let them grow for a year, and I mean, just go back and look at the previous pictures, and they look nothing like a tree, and here they've got quite a nice structure to them. So yeah, a pretty effective process, and I'm pretty happy with the results here. I can't wait to get to pruning these. um, and so I will carry on, turn off the camera, and show you some more updates here in a few minutes. So it looks like I'm about halfway done here. I think this is my third trip removing debris. And it's pretty amazing to me. I think especially with the background. I mean, look at all the branches I have an opportunity to work with. Lots of options here. Like, I'm really really impressed with how this thing has just grown. I mean, there's not much ramification, but it's always interesting to me, like when you defoliate a forest or even a tree. It's just beautiful, like when you can see the structure of the branches and the forest and how it hangs together. And this one hasn't even ever been styled. Just the natural beauty of seeing all this growth and being able to finally see it. Here's a difference in leaves. Hopefully I'll get this smaller leaf done. These are the first set of leaves, and then these second ones are the set that come after. So the first couple sets of leaves are always really tiny, and then especially with these large leaf jades, they just get massive. So I will take a break and be back with you again soon. Well, I'm finally coming into the home stretch here, so I thought I'd share the excitement with you. This, I should have timed it. I really should have, but this has taken quite a long time to cut all these off, but I think it will be well worth it. And you kind of get into that Zen moment. I mean, I guess I've been whining a little bit about it, but it's quite enjoyable. Just sitting here with the tree and enjoying a summer day and the sounds and the smells of summer, and just kind of, pruning up this forest and getting more and more excited for the pruning that is right around the corner. But what a difference. I mean, I'm sure you can see, already we can really see the structure of the forest, and we'll be able to make some intelligent decisions about the styling here. So let me clean up all the debris. So let's take a look. I finally have it defoliated. Now you can clearly see the main tree. Look at that. And the side trees. And so I think, the styling is, I've got this nice big tree in the front here. And I'm okay with that. Those are the two main trees. And then I've got a larger tree here. And then, so those are the three basic triangle trees, I feel. And then the rest is going to sort of be played around that. But let's spin it around and take a look. It's just beautiful. I'm so happy with how this has turned out. It's beat even my expectations. So I'm sort of impressed with how there's kind of a large tree in the back, and at some point I'll probably rearrange all these, but I want to give them another year of growth at least before I do that, because I can really do some styling on the individual trees. There's a long way to go in this forest, and eventually I'll probably have to get a bigger pot and spread them out as they get bigger. But this looks just about right for me now, so I'm not gonna disrupt anything. We'll just keep it in the same pot and the same orientation, and just do some heavy duty pruning, which is coming up. So as I look at this, I think the plan is just to restore the styling. So this is the main tree, and this is the secondary tree, and I want, it's sort of a basic triangle now, but it's not very defined or visible. And so I want, if you just kind of imagine placing some triangles around here and here, I sort of want this triangle on the left, and then one kind of over on the right, and then cut into this one on the side with some asymmetry. This large one in the back, I may have to do something about it. It's really, it's sort of disappeared back there, and that's what I mean. I think on this right-hand side, I've got a couple of trees that are right in line with each other, and I think how that happened, I've got actually a stump here that hasn't grown anything. I could cut that off, but I think I'll just let it go and see if it actually does sprout something. I mean, it's been a year and it hasn't done anything, and oftentimes, yeah, you're just out of luck on those, but sometimes not. We'll see what happens. I'll give you a look at some of the stuff we cut off for your leaf estimation. Quite a mound here, and many of them have fallen off onto the patio. But yeah, quite a fun little afternoon of bonsai work. So one of the first things I like to do when you have a lot of branches like this is fix some of the basics, where you have three coming, take it from 3 to 2, where you're coming off of a branch, right? Because you don't want a branch going from 1 to 3. It just looks odd and bulges out, and it's just not going to work. There's also stuff like this that is coming to the inside of the trunk, and you want to just cut that off because it'll cross the trunk and just look kind of bizarre. And the top of that one looks pretty good. I think there's a lot of stuff that's growing straight up and competing with the main trunk, and you might want to just reduce that. It sort of simplifies it and is less cluttering. I mean, sometimes you do want that because, I mean, that branch isn't bad. It's kind of coming up and out, so I could work with it. But I have so many branches, I think I'm just going to take it right off and create a little space there, because these things really branch out so much. I think that'll fill in quickly, and I know it looks like you're leaving it a bit bare, and I'm going to warn you, this will probably look a bit bare when we're done, because I want even more like this beautiful branching we already have. I want that same thing at a smaller scale off of the primary branches, so then you really have some branching. And so, to do that, you really have to cut it back kind of hard, because they're going to generally branch out to near wherever you cut it. It could be back further, but oftentimes, you can kind of bet money on that it's going to be right where you cut it. Um, and so, yeah, I want more branching. So we're going to cut a lot off. So I'm just going around and trying to clean up a little and just get the basics down like I just mentioned. Another thing I've noticed, I've got a lot of, I guess they're called parallel trunks on this. You can see like here, I've got this one and one right beside it and maybe another one behind it. And you really don't need all those. So it isn't like a 1 to 3, but it's just noise, like trees don't grow with like 2 primary trunks generally. And so, you know, you want to pick off, just get some of this out of here. You want to pick the one that you really like and, get rid of the others, so that you have some, a nice structure to the tree and it's not confusing and draws your eye in a bad way. So I'm trying to pick the new apex. It could be this one. It could be this one. And sometimes it's just a judgment call, I just kind of take a look at it and you want to say, okay, is it growing the right direction? Look at the thickness, its relationship to the other branches that are right near it. And, it's not rocket science. Just get rid of one and, there are no mistakes. It is what it is. You'll cut that off and, you're not going to remember what that branch might have looked like in 6 months when you do all this again. But yeah, it kind of reduces that confusion. So I've got some of the general stuff done, and now I like to kind of hone in on one tree. And I guess what I found, like sort of philosophically, how I work on a forest, usually it's the main tree, but it doesn't have to be the main tree. I think I'm going to start on this tree because I think it's got a lot of problems. The main tree is pretty simple there to the right of this one. And I just prune this one up, and you're sort of setting the tone for the rest of the pruning with that, right? Because, I want the triangle to be in relation to the other trees, and, this tree will affect the tree to the right of it, which affects the tree to the left of it. And, it all kind of comes together, So, I generally start by doing a bunch of stuff like we just did, just getting rid of obvious stuff, not spending a lot of time, but just going at it. And then, picking a tree that I really want to start with and honing in on that. I think I missed a leaf there. And I definitely don't want, I want that branch. I think I'm going to start here because this is just too long. I mean, it's a nice branch. And you can kind of look at the leaves. They kind of alternate 90 degrees. Is that 90? Yeah, 90 degrees. So you can cut back to the point you want it to grow. Like I want that one to grow out horizontally and then maybe up or down because I want it to kind of go a bit further out over the edge. This one is kind of too long, so I'm going to cut that back. And a lot of this is you're sort of figuring out, okay, what is my new apex? And, you look at this one, it's got like a long section here. And so this is obviously going to be my new apex on this tree. I could cut it way down. Actually, that might not be bad because I sort of like how that one we just trimmed looks. Yeah, I think... cut this back. I think this tall one, I think I do like I think I'm going to get rid of this one. I think I like the one in front of it is the apex. I think it has nice character to it and it's kind of coming the direction I want. But I'm leaving a little stub there. We'll see who survives. It might actually be that thick one. And so you can see, a lot of people, they watch this video in horror and they go, oh, you got rid of all the branches and the ramification. And yeah, I got rid of stuff that's too tall and too straight. And I mean, trust me, this is going to look way more charming because of these cuts in the years to come. And I am going to take this off because these trees grow really, they grow a lot on the top, right? So you really need to prune the top back hard, or it just takes off. And that's true with trees in general. And these respond a little bit better because if you hit the top, you can grow the bottom out. But sometimes you just have to cut the complete top off in order to get anything growing down below. But so that first tree I think looks pretty good. And as you can see, we're kind of setting the tone. It sort of doesn't have a lot going off to the right because the main tree to the right will be shading it. And I really want to encourage it to grow out over the edge of the pot and really fill that out. So on to the main tree, and as I said, this one doesn't need a whole lot of pruning. This doesn't have a lot of structure to it, which is something I'd like to fix. And I actually would like the trunk to get beefier, so maybe in this next round of growing, I'll just allow this one to grow, even more, so that will happen. But it has a nice flowing shape to it. It kind of comes up and slightly to the left and slightly to the right, and then out to the top. And I think as that smooths over the years, it'll be quite beautiful. This is straight up. I don't need that. I'm just going to cut it and get some branching off to the side. And I've mentioned this before. You can see we've got a lot of problems when we look at it at the back. It's best to swing the tree around on your turntable a lot because it's a three-dimensional object and you need to work in 3 dimensions. And sometimes it's really easy just cut off some of this long stuff. Like that one I just cut. Like I know I'm going to cut it down further because that swooping branch just looks kind of goofy. But I don't know exactly where I want to do that, and so if I prune other bits of the tree, usually that will present itself, and then you can sort of figure that out. And I want to leave a little room on this tallest tree because the branching has to be higher because I don't want it ramming into the trees, beside it. This one is really totally hidden by the trunk. You can't even see it. So, and it's kind of slightly competing with the trunk. So I think I don't need that at all. And I'll get some growth. That one I just cut to come out to the side to fill in that space would be nice. And yeah, this one's kind of getting there. These little ones in the front I want to look like bushes, so I just cut them off really, really short. And so I don't think I'm completely done with that tree, but I'm going to move on, and then I will come back. And we have a lot of trees to prune here, so I think what I'm going to do is similar to the defoliation. I'll just stop with any particular interesting points in like this. I usually come back and do, as you get more and more of the riffraff out of the way, you sort of see clearly what you want, and then you just keep refining that. And so certainly, I'm just going to go through here and work on each one of these trees in the same way that I just showed with the first two. And then when I'm done, I'll come back and do some final pruning. But you see, I've got a decent shape there, and now as I'm planning on this left hand side, as I'm planning on the right, I want sort of another triangle there, and so this tree is going to have to be, I think, significantly, lower, and maybe that's the apex, but it's pretty strong, so I may want to cut that back. So a lot of it is just this planning of what I want to cut to keep the overall shape. And this tree too has a lot of branches kind of coming out of that central point, which I'm not out of this spot, which I'm not opposed to. I mean, sometimes I definitely want to get it down to at least 3 because they're kind of like trunks, preferably 2. But I don't have to do that right now. But certainly the next time I prune it, I think I would want to do that. So I cut that one off, and I'm going to cut this down because the one that was extending to the left is just competing with the main tree too much. And I've got kind of a chunk here I could just take out. So I think I've decided I'm really going to cut this one back. I'm not happy with the structure of it much, and so I'm just going to cut it back and then see what we get. And Because you can see it's kind of a mess. Like all these they're all kind of parallel. They're not very interesting. They're straight as an arrow. Um, so I'm just gonna cut them back. I didn't really see a main one that I particularly liked, so I sort of picked that one. Now hang on here. Yeah, but I'm definitely getting that, secondary triangle that I was looking for. Uh, this is just kind of interfering with the tree behind it. I really want to see some of those trees in the back. So there's not going to be too much left of this particular tree. But, sometimes that's what you have to do. This is just a bizarre looking branch. I'm going to take that off. I have a feeling that I'm going to have to make some serious decisions and do kind of a pretty decent trunk chop on this. I think if I wanted this tree to be like a broom style, it's perfect. It's perfect for it. And so, I do have to eventually remove some trees from here, so I might just do that. There's no sense destroying a tree that's doing a great job growing in a style that it would work for, and I mean I can try to shoehorn it into what I want it to be. But sometimes you just don't see those options. Like I don't know. I think this is just a tough one to style, and might be better off just going with what it wants to be. All right, I am going to fast forward. I'm just working on some of the smaller stuff and bring you back for the finer details and final grooming and pruning of the forest. So after that short intermission, I thought I'd show you where I'm at. You can see I've gotten a long way now. I've kind of pruned a couple other trees, and you can sort of see what I'm going for. Just get them to their basic structure. And I will continue on. I'm starting to get to the fine tuning really when I'm pruning the back trees. You can see just I want to really accentuate the triangles that I'm working with. And I thought this would be a good time to introduce the thought for the day, which I think a good one is the wonder of jades. I mean, I think they're just amazing plants to work with, and the fact that I went from large rootless, leafless, branchless cuttings to a massively overgrown forest, and then back to something that is actually starting to look like a bonsai forest in less than a year is pretty impressive. And honestly, I could have accelerated that more quickly. I'm just going to cut this one off, get it nice and stumpy like the other ones. But what's the hurry? I really wanted to let this grow and kind of branch out and have a lot more options. And it really is looking quite charming. I'm very happy with kind of, where we're at. I think still looks a little stumpy after all my pruning on it, but the next pruning I think will be, I think it'll move forward quite a bit, and I'm not going to wait quite so long as I did last time. So usually when I'm doing the fine tuning, I am just rotating the tree around, looking at it from all angles, and stuff that really grabs my eye in a negative way, or if it's confusing or cluttered, I just cut it off. So I'm looking at this, how it kind of, comes into the main trunk there. I do want to branch there, so I'm not sure I want to cut that off, but at least it's something I'm noticing that I don't like. um, and so I'm looking at, it kind of draws your eye to that section. Once you see it, you can't really unsee it. So I'm just going to shorten everything back a bit because I want it to be pretty compact. And this is kind of drawing my eye. It's kind of like a bulge, and it's sort of parallel to to my new apex. I'm just going to get rid of it. And also, you know, you can do a lot of carving on jade, so I don't want that bulge there, so I'll just sort of cut and smooth this off, and it will sort of skin over, and yeah, that's a lot better. And you know, it'll just grow on. That is a cute, stumpy little tree. This, I think I mentioned before, it's kind of like got this swooping upward, it's just very unattractive. So I want to pick a node that I want it to grow from, and I will cut it back to that node. And, you know, I kind of look at the trees around it to figure out where that might be. I don't know. Because whatever I do with that one, it's going to sort of, I mean, it's kind of hidden by the tree in front of it, so maybe I let it go, but I don't know. I'll just move on and come back to it, which is also a good strategy. If the best decision doesn't immediately present itself, don't beat yourself up. At least I don't. There's plenty of decisions to be made, so you're better off just moving on and finding something else. So, in general, I'm pretty happy with this left side. Um, I think. I mean, I guess the angle of that main tree could be moved a bit, but you know, it's got a nice sort of shape here, and then it kind of goes into that one pretty well, and then you know we kind of have another. It kind of goes back up on the other side, but it's not exactly working for me on the right hand side. And I think part of the reason for that is I have too many trees over there. Like I really don't need several of them, and you know, so I'm just gonna punt for now and pull them out probably next time I work on this. So I think my work on this tree for today is just about done. You know, I think this middle one still has some problems. It's always best to shorten things back as much as you possibly can to get taper and more growth in and more options. So that's another thing you want to think about as you're doing your final prunings, you know, because there's no sense waiting another 3, 4, 5 months and then cutting it off. You could have had some decent growth in that amount of time. Although growth is growth, you're going to get thickness anyway, so you know nothing's lost. I do need some more. Yeah, I think the right hand side, it's just too cluttered right now, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I'll pick the best trees that I want to work with there in the future. But I think for now, I'm done. And here's an update on the Carnage cam. You can see the branches in there and the leaves. This time I can say I cut off 100% of the leaves and then some. Quite a mound of branches and greenery. Heavy too. Like it's always amazing to me. These things are just full of water. And what a lot of fun on a nice summer day here. So let's take a final look. I'll just go free camera and zoom in a little so I think you can kind of see better. I guess I could take those rocks out, but I'm done for the day. It's hot. And show you kind of what I've done. You can get a closer look at some of the branching we've got going. And I think I'm in pretty good shape with the main branches now. It's always helpful to look at it from the top. Um, and yeah, we really did some cutting on this. But I'm sure you can also see we've got quite a bit of progress from the last time you saw this tree. And I think the future, I'm just going to let it grow. And I think the next pruning will be super interesting on this one as we move it forward into becoming a nice bonsai forest that is impressive and that I am super proud of. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this has turned out so far. And I want to show you a bonus video, a little update of one of my favorite trees, at least the trees that has new growth that I absolutely love. And that is my Aurora. Like when the new leaves come on, they're yellow against the green and they look, I mean, they look like little flowers. They're so beautiful. I really like it. And I am looking forward to putting this tree into a purple pot that I have because I think it'll really look good in that. And with that, I want to thank you for spending time with me and watching the channel, and I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.